Half a day, everyone. If you're just joining us, I'm Tomas Manglonia with Marianas Press, and we are at the CNMI DPS headquarters on Saipan with the BMV director, Eric. David, thank you for joining us.
Half a day, Tomas. Thank you for inviting me.
And so there's a big deadline coming up, and that's Real ID, and everyone wants to know what that means for the CNMI.
Right. So basically, just give a little history of the Real ID. Back in 2005, right after, I believe, 9/11, U.S. Congress had passed a Real ID Act, which means that they want to, stricken the identification cards that all U.S. state and territories should have. And that is called the Real ID Act. And so right now, with our deadline, which is May 7, the CNMI currently has ran through a lot of hurdles, did a lot of back pays with our vendors, but we are finally here. Starting tomorrow, which May 7, we will start issuing the Real ID for the CNMI.
And so the implementation part is what begins tomorrow. I know everyone's concerned about the air travel. So
Right.
can you explain to us if you had issued already a Real ID, or if you're gonna start applying for one tomorrow? What do you need to know when you're traveling?
Right. So part of the requirements, and this is just the processing phase to obtain a Real ID here in the CNMI. Right now, motor vehicle would require the applicant to actually bring in a U.S. valid passport that's original and signed and unexpired. It's either a U.S. passport, a U.S. passport card, birth certificate, your SS security, in order for us to process, and also two proof of identification. It can be your previous driver's license that you may have. It can be any form of identification that you possess that has your photo ID on it, so that we can confirm that the applicant who's applying for a Real ID is who he is. And at the same time, also provide two proof of residency. It may be any type of billing statements from CUC, your credit card statement, your phone bill, as long as we can cross-check the address that's mentioned on each billing statement that you provide will match on our system or the information that you provide us. And basically everything is just cross-checking all our dots and I's, making sure that the applicant is who he is, and then we can start the process of the applicant getting his Real ID.
So that's the process at CNMI BMV to apply for a Real ID starting tomorrow.
That is correct.
And so tomorrow, people can walk away with a Real ID that is functional, that works at the airport and other establishments in the States, maybe?
It will be recognized. Unfortunately, from this morning's meeting with our counterparts with DHS TSA, is that they'll go ahead and accept it. They'll accept your Real ID and go ahead and let you go through. But if you don't have a Real ID with you, you're required to, again, if you have a passport, that's one of our top identification, you proving as a U.S. citizen that you have a U.S. passport and that you can travel. If you're just traveling with the Real ID, and if TSA don't recognize that, they'll question you. But I recommend each traveler to carry additional supporting documents. If you have the Real ID and if they're questioning you about your Real ID, or if you don't have the Real ID with you, or if you don't, you're not issued a Real ID, but you carry the old blue and white license that we previously issued back then.
I know a lot of our viewers were asking about travel between Saipan and Guam for medical reasons, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you have the old ID, you just need to bring one additional supporting document to travel.
Right. So birth certificate would suffice. At least some sort of identification that, again, going back, they need to verify whether you are the actual traveler who's traveling. So you need to bring all those documents with you just to, satisfy their needs.
Yeah, because I think some of the concern is, you can't travel anymore if you don't have it. But you can if you have the supporting documents,
Correct.
even if you don't have the
Correct.
Real ID.
Right.
And then just to clarify, because I know our viewers are going to ask, the reason why it sounds like there's kind of a formal agreement that they're going to accept our Real ID, but it's technically not a full 100% implemented for the CNMI yet. Is that the case?
You're right. Reason is because we're on our final stage of testing our equipment and at the same time issuing the cards. So until such time we're complete and we're at 120%, and TSA, DHS, or our counterparts would notify us saying that, hey, your test cards have gone through, it's been recognized, we're gonna go start, registering into our database, and then they'll recognize our cards. For somewhat reasons right now, I know a lot of states besides the CNMI is, occurring,
Some
issues, because even besides the CNMI, other or TSA checkpoints are not recognizing their Real ID. So meaning to say that also our DHS counterparts are still fixing their end. Yeah. So that's why with our meeting this morning at 8 o'clock, our counterparts had assured us that whatever documents that you travel with, just bring it along with you and make sure that you have your passport with you. And if you don't have a passport, your birth certificate would suffice, and other forms of identification, just to make sure that the traveler is who he is.
And so I have the marker for a Real ID is that star in the upper right, basically, right?
Correct.
That's to say. So I have that. I got that several years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So tomorrow, let's say I have a flight.
Right.
I can just travel with that, and the federal authorities, TSA, is aware that that is, even though it's not fully implemented, that is still
They
an
will
acceptable standalone, nothing else.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
All right. And we'll share the Real ID requirements on this Facebook post and on our website, so everyone can read for themselves.
Yeah, I know it's pretty lengthy.
It is lengthy, yes.
Yeah.
But you need it to get it, right?
Of course, and I just want to share this with our CNMI public that starting tomorrow too as well. If anyone out there that does not want to get a Real ID and would need a state identification card, we will be offering that too as well, and that will be the first time CNMI would be issuing the CNMI state identification card.
And to be clear, that's totally separate from Real ID, right?
Totally
So we're
separate
talking
from
about
Real
a
ID.
new topic. So tell us about the state ID. What's
Right.
the
So-
difference, or what can you use it for?
So the state ID would only is another form of identification card, that you can actually use for traveling or whatever business that you may have. And if they authorities or private business would ask for an ID, you can use that state ID indicating that, hey, I'm a CNMI state resident. This is my identification card. Here you go. So, and I know a lot of states in the mainland, they've been issuing state ID stating that individuals from that state.
All right. And so how do you apply for that, or do you just go to the BMV also to get your state ID? now,
Right.
or-
Again, it's similar, less documentations that you will need for the Real ID. So it's listed here, and again, it's also lengthy. But as long as you can provide proof identification with you, bring in a valid original birth certificate or a passport. And then you can obtain, or even using your CNMI old license to the blue and white, you can obtain a state identification card.
All right. And so, how much does the Real ID cost, and will the state ID cost? I know that might be one of them. Do you have that? On the
Right.
top of
Right
your
now,
mind?
it's the same price. Right
Same
now,
price? Okay.
yes, our current fee right now for Real ID would still remain the same, same as our previous license that we used to issue is $50. Right, and then the state ID would be the same amount. Since it's our first time to implement the state identification card, then I need to add that to my scheduling fee with it. So for right now, it still be the same price at $50.
All right. Thank you so much, Director. Anything else you want the public to know about any of these IDs, all these IDs that we're talking about?
Yeah, you know what? I know, me and my team back at the motor vehicle section, I give good props and big ups to them because it's been a hurdle for us because Real ID had just lapsed for about 2.5 years, and now that we're getting into it, I'm glad that we had previous users that were there. I call them veterans, that actually are training our current staff that we have, and we're only 13 man strong, to include myself. And imagine, with that said, we process close to 800 to 1,000 applicants for both registration and driver's license in a month. So that's a lot of work, and I give good props to them. Good job, guys. Keep up the good work, and we're gonna be expecting a lot of influx when Real ID starts tomorrow. So I ask everyone's patient. If our facility is full, I may ask individuals or applicants to wait outside the hall. It can be hot, so bring snacks and water to hydrate. So and I know a lot of folks, our local folks or everyone, is anxious to get a Real ID. So just be patient, and we'll get to you.
All right. And then is there kind of an estimated timeline for it to be 100% compliant
So
for the Real ID? Is it by the end of the month, or?
I know a lot of press release had gone out saying that we'll start in January, we'll start in April or end of May, but for sure, from this morning's meeting, we had made clarifications, and we were told by early next month, so sometimes in June. But even with that said, again, I want to assure the travelers, those that have a current Real ID, and those that we're going to be issuing out, they're still valid. It's still a valid credential that TSA would accept, and they did assure us that you will come across delays, but that's just going to be the norm for TSA, because this is a whole new ball game for all of us.
For the entire nation.
For entire nation, and it's to be expected. But they did say that they will not turn around travelers. If you don't have that supporting documents, it's their call. I don't want to say they'll turn you around, but they might. But just make sure, everyone that's listening, to make sure that you bring the supporting documents that's going to be shooting out today for press release. Follow that, and when you travel, bring it with you. Yeah.
All right, Director, thank you so much.
All right.